It was May 1945. The war in Europe was effectively over, but General George S. Patton Jr. saw one final, necessary battle. He looked east, toward Prague, where the last desperate remnants of Hitler's army were making their final stand. Patton wanted to charge in and end it quickly. But the greatest military commander in the theater, Dwight D. Eisenhower, raised a powerful, political hand and said, "Absolutely not." The Third Army headquarters in Bavaria smelled of damp earth and exhaustion, yet the atmosphere crackled with Patton's ambition. It was late April 1945. Patton, known to his men as Old Blood and Guts, was the quintessential hunter, and the hunt was not quite finished. While Berlin was collapsing under Soviet assault, thousands of elite German troops, many SS divisions, were retreating into Czechoslovakia, trying to use the rugged terrain as a shield. Patton saw an opening, a chance to complete the destruction of the Wehrmacht utterly and save a major European capital. His map was marked with a furious, aggressive arrow pointing straight toward Prague. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to our channel. It helps us bring you more incredible World War II stories. By late April, the American advance had swept deep into southern Germany. The Third Army was a whirlwind of movement, covering more ground faster than any army in history. But the troops were increasingly encountering not disciplined formations, but desperate, cornered animals. These remnants included fanatical SS units and foreign volunteers who feared Soviet capture far more than American. Their goal was simple: reach the Americans, surrender, and escape the Red Army's vengeance. This created a paradoxical situation. The closer the Americans got to the established Yalta demarcation line, the harder the fighting became. The immediate objective was Pilsen, a crucial industrial city and the home of the famous Skoda works. On May 6, 1945, the Third Army's spearheads liberated Pilsen, greeted by delirious Czech crowds offering flowers, kisses, and the famous Pilsner Urquell beer. This was liberation as Patton envisioned it: swift, overwhelming, and triumphant. The local German garrison surrendered almost instantly. But Pilsen was just 55 miles from Prague. Patton's intelligence reports warned him that inside the capital, Czech resistance fighters were rising up, and the remaining SS garrison was preparing a brutal suppression. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from history. General Patton felt the moral imperative acutely. He knew that the Soviet drive toward Prague was proceeding slowly, bogged down by logistics and stubborn pockets of resistance further north. The brave Czechs who started the Prague uprising on May 5 were facing tanks and heavy artillery. They needed immediate help. Patton felt they could reach the city in hours. He radioed Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force (SHAF), commanded by General Eisenhower, requesting permission to push ahead. His message was clear: there is still a powerful military force to destroy, and innocent civilians to save. Eisenhower's headquarters was receiving Patton's aggressive pleas alongside furious diplomatic cables from Moscow. The fate of Europe had been settled not just by bullets, but by ink. At Yalta and other conferences, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin had agreed upon specific occupational zones. The agreed-upon demarcation line, the official boundary between the Western Allies and the Soviet Red Army, ran through western Czechoslovakia. Violating that line, even for the most humanitarian reason, risked an unimaginable political crisis. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from history. Eisenhower was a political general, acutely aware that American blood should not be spilled in the final hours of the war over a matter of territory already ceded to an uneasy ally. He denied Patton's request. The boundary was set. The American forces were to stop at a line running approximately from Karlovy Vary in the north down to České Budějovice in the south. This invisible line, sometimes known by the troops as the Budějovice-Carlsbad line, was now the front. It was a line drawn not by terrain, but by politics. Patton was incandescent with rage. He argued to his staff that leaving the destruction of the last organized German resistance to the Soviets was tactically foolish, and abandoning Prague to potential slaughter was morally bankrupt. He believed that the Soviets were using the agreement to consolidate power, and if the US reached Prague first, it could heavily influence Czechoslovakia's post-war political landscape. Patton was not just a military commander, he was a fiercely anti-communist general who saw a strategic window closing. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from history. The order was final. The Third Army stopped. For the combat-weary troops of the 1st and 9th Infantry Divisions, this mandatory halt was surreal. They could hear the faint but unmistakable rumble of fighting coming from the east. It was a painful, unprecedented moment. Soldiers trained to fight to the death were ordered to wait while a desperate battle raged just beyond their sight. The atmosphere at the front line was heavy with suppressed energy and frustration. They were forced to be witnesses, not participants. Despite the halt, the American presence served one critical function: it created a massive magnet for German surrender. Thousands of German soldiers, including entire armies, raced westward to cross the Budjabas-Carlsbad line, desperate to surrender to the Americans rather than face the Red Army. American forces spent the final days of the war processing and disarming hundreds of thousands of Wehrmacht and SS personnel who had intentionally retreated into the US sector, often pushing past Czech resistance fighters to do so. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories from history. While American tanks waited in Pilsen, the Prague uprising descended into chaos. The remaining German garrison fought savagely. When the Soviet First Ukrainian Front finally entered Prague on May 9, 1945, after the formal German surrender, the fighting was nearly over, but the Red Army encountered a devastated city. The delay cost lives, but Eisenhower's decision had successfully avoided any high-risk accidental engagement between US and Soviet forces. This delicate diplomatic balance was a victory in itself. Patton never stopped believing that holding his men back was a strategic blunder that cost the West political influence for decades to come. He wrote later that he could have taken Prague with a fraction of the losses the Soviets incurred. Yet, the decision reflected the shift in priorities. The war was now over, and the new battle was one of geopolitics and diplomacy, not tanks. Eisenhower chose to sacrifice a military victory for the sake of global stability, closing the deadliest chapter in human history without igniting the next one. The American Third Army's halt in Czechoslovakia serves as one of the most poignant examples of military discipline overriding raw combat instinct. The sacrifice was not one of blood, but of ambition and moral duty. They held the line, not because they lacked courage, but because their command understood the terrifying implications of the post-war world. The liberation of Western Europe was complete, and the limits of Western influence had been clearly defined. Final segment: the soldiers of the Third Army stood on the precipice of Prague, witnessing the final hours of the European war unfold beyond their reach. The order to halt saved countless American lives and maintained the fragile alliance needed to end the war, but it forever haunted those who felt they had abandoned friends in need. This political constraint marked the true end of the fighting phase of World War II. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible